A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams. Stood out towards me.
Ow! No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
Evan, thanks for sitting down to talk about Motherland with us. You've got a screening at 4:00, right? You had your premiere here last night. I'm sorry,
the Texas premiere.
The Texas premiere, because
was last night.
The world premiere was in Omaha, correct? Yeah.
Omaha Film Festival, great little film festival. It's not so little. It's actually been growing. As it was 20th year. It was cool to get over there, and we got honorable mention for best feature film over there. So it was great. Yeah, and then we just came from Iowa's Julian Dubuque Film Festival. We were nominated for Best Feature as well, and then we won Best Ensemble Cast Award.
That's great.
Which is great.
That's great. Congratulations.
As a director, thank you. As a director,
Yeah.
you want that. Because that's my number one job. If you had to distill it down to one thing, which you don't, but the one thing is your performances and the fact that that's what resonated. And they're like, this is hands down the best performances and no false notes. Great. I'd love to hear it. So.
I do want to talk about the cast, but I'd like to start with an easy question first. So this film was written by a woman. You have a woman cinematographer, and I believe 2 female producers as well, right? And of course, a cast full of women. And the story is about motherhood and parenting. And so I guess what I wanted to ask you is, as a man, how did you know that you were right to tell this story?
Great question. I like getting this question at Q&As in the festivals because it's a great opportunity to humanize myself to other people and say, okay, you get a chance to know me. What did I have to go through in my life to earn the role of director on this film? And just to tack on, our production designer was also a woman. Her name was Elizabeth Jones. Our head of wardrobe, Carmajit Dupuis, another woman. So we had women everywhere across the film. So we were conscious of it, but also they're all fantastic. It's not we're going to get to a point where we're going to just cross women off, and it's like this was just an awesome production designer, and this was just like Kasusha she's an amazing DP. Like if you've seen the movie, and this is one of the great points of feedback with the performances and with the cinematography. It's like, wow, you guys are doing something special. But for me, it comes down to a meeting I had with Lana Link, one of the producers, and this was after COVID. We hadn't seen each other in a while. We were at a social event. We're like, let's get together and have a catch-up lunch. And now, usually a Hollywood lunch is kind of a surface level thing, and you have really good intentions, but it's just a little touch base. But for us, she made this offhand comment about she had never met her real father. And we were talking about that a little bit, and then I offered my side of that equation, my perspective, because I never knew my father either, and I told her I only met him just recently, and we had a beautiful moment where I experienced like the love of a father and looking into his eyes for the first time, realizing where I got my eyes from, and it's just it's so profound to be older in life and have that experience. And then he died 6 months later. So to have such a beautiful moment and then to lose him and be so close to never being able to exist, I would hate for that to happen to her. So anyway, it was just food for thought. But then we were digging deeper. I was talking about our families, and I was telling her about me and my wife and all the years of infertility we've experienced and how difficult that was and painful and lonely and what you go through, and then all the miscarriages we had all along the way. And and going to the ER with my wife and all the times we spent in the hospital, and then finally to conceive naturally after giving up, and then all of a sudden this happens, and then to go and be in a hospital for the best of reasons and giving birth to a child and experiencing that and holding my wife's hand through all of these experiences. So I didn't realize at the time I was auditioning for Motherland by mentioning all of these things, because we're wiping our eyes and going to our car, and we're both saying, what just happened at this lunch? We have to go back to work after this. But she calls me the next day and she says, Evan, I can't stop thinking about our time together, and we just greenlit this script called Motherland, and we've already heard from the directors we were considering, but everything you talked about in our lunch the other day are all the emotional touchstones that are throughout this story, and I think you should give it a read. So I said, yeah, sure, send it over. That was a Tuesday. I got the script, read it again Wednesday morning, said, yes, I want to pitch. And then she said, okay, great, can you pitch Friday morning? I said, oh, wow, okay. She's like, don't worry, it'll be Zoom. You can just show up, just do the Zoom pitch, just be there. Like, no, I'll put a pitch deck together, do this right. It's a visual medium. I've got to get what's in my head out in front of you guys. And that was like 20. So that ended up being 20% of the pitch, was that pitch deck. Just big, bold images, not a typical pitch deck, something very like, let's get through this and expand on some ideas with a quote from the script or whatever. And then 80% of it was, who's Evan Matthews? Why am I the perfect emotional shepherd for this film, based on the experiences in my life, what I went through as a child, having all these horrible male figures in and out of my life, and then gravitating towards my mother and her sister. So all this, like, everything I've experienced has always pushed me towards the feminine, towards women. That was always a safety net for me. So next thing you know, the producers are in a situation, and the writer as well, like, we can't imagine anyone else making this movie but Evan Matthews. And they say, Evan, that's great. Can you pitch this again on Monday? One of the producers couldn't be here. I was like, oh, sure. So the good thing about, right, I'm like, all right. And there's a certain type of energy you need to pitch on Zoom, because you have to transfer that through the screen. When you're in a room, you can kind of read the vibe and who needs to get attention or your eyes. Zoom is a different ball game. And so on Monday, it was a cleaner pitch. It was a little bit tighter. I was like 95% of the energy level. And then they said, great, Evan, we're making a decision this week. We'll be in touch. I get a text from Lana. Hey, we have 3 clarifying questions from your pitch. Can you hop on a quick Zoom? I'm like, okay, great. Hop back on. The first question is about production design, and I don't even remember what it was, because when you hear that, you're like, this is going to change. When the rubber meets the road, the real decisions are coming. But I was, of course, they had some things they wanted me to consider, and I'm open to it. Second question was about clarifying some of the ideas I had for the changes in the script, and that was pretty straightforward. And the third question was, do you want to direct this movie? And I was like, oh yeah, the tear in my eye. I was like, you guys got me. And of course I said yes, and I celebrate with my family, and then I get the email with the contract. I'm like, I guess I better get a lawyer to, like, because this just got real. And it was negotiating that for like less than 2 weeks. It was like 10 days, and then next thing you know, I'm flying off to New York making this movie. But sorry, that was a long-winded way to like take you through the journey. But why a man for this movie? Well, they're like whoever's best for the job, but they really wanted a woman, and they had a lot of female directors they were considering. So, but I experienced enough horrible things in my life to justify, like, okay, you know what? You've been through a lot emotionally, and you have the levels of empathy and can be the emotional shepherd for this film.
Well, no, that's great, and I wanted a long-winded answer. That's perfect. And I mean, this makes me think about, or watching this film, you hear the synopsis of this film, and of course, I think you automatically think, okay, a woman's going to direct this, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always the best. I mean, I want to be careful, how I'm framing that, right?
No, we'll watch your stuff, Dick. Go ahead and keep digging this grave. Here's a shovel. Go ahead.
But what I'm getting at is, Bell Hooks said feminism is for everybody, right? That you can't talk about feminism without talking about masculinity or men. And that level of intersectionality, I think, comes back around. And then to hear that personal experience, right, that shows the weight of that statement, right? And then how you're able to convey, right, your own experience through the film, right? So that's where that statement was coming from, right?
Absolutely. No, and I love it that this type of story, when I get to connect, especially with the actors, and I have to let my walls down and bleed first and say, this is who I am, because this has come up the entire time. And the producers, they said this might be an issue, it might not, it depends on how you handle it. But you just have to be authentic and true, because everyone's got a BS detector of some kind. And they're like, this guy, he's a human being who's suffered just like me. And I look at other people, I'm like, I can't imagine overcoming the things you've had to overcome. And we have a bunch of scars to show that we've survived to this point, and let's share. And when I share this story on our set, like the different department heads might be struggling with something fertility-wise or with miscarriage. And because I've shared that, we'll have these private sessions where we talk about this. Then we get to bond and connect. And I got this nickname. It was Father, Mother, Evan on set. Because I was sharing all these stories with me and my wife and what we've been through, and then they're connecting, we're bonding, and now we're deeply close personal friends to this day. We pick up where we left off, and like these incredibly touching hugs. Like, I really missed you. You're a great human being, and it's a wonderful thing.
Well, and I mean, being called Father, Mother, Evan, I think that goes to the point that these titles, these honorifics, are so often constructs, right? I mean, why can't you be more maternal than someone else just because you're a man? And I don't mean to sound like an incel here. I'm worried about that. I really am. I do want to be sensitive there. But I do think that too often, right, as a man, you're supposed to be a certain kind of way. And then it's surprising when you're vulnerable and when you're open with people and when you're open in an empathetic, caring way, and how that shows and how that comes across. So.
Yeah, I have to say, I think I have an advantage there, because I was born a twin. I have an identical twin brother. And if you ever know anybody that are twins, they have like their own secret twin language. But also you have this heightened sense of empathy when you have a twin. Like, if my brother's feeling something or being attacked, it's like it's happening to me, and I'll become adrenalized and flushed in that situation as well. And it's given me the ability, when my brother's not there and I'm with my actors or someone else, I'm able to tap in and make this very real for me. So maybe that's a maternal instinct of some kind, but I have the ability to tap in that way and become incredibly emotional and sensitive to what's going on, or how we're shooting a scene, or how we're rehearsing something. I feel privileged to have that. Yeah.
In addition to just the motherhood aspect and the raising of children, this film tackles a ton of other topics, especially from societal oppression by using language, by using technology, eugenics, and forced separation of the sexes and molding. How did you balance all of that with this central story of being able to tell the story of a woman who is a part of this system but questioning it, and then everything else that's going on around in the movie itself?
Yeah, I think we look at like the core theme of Motherland and what it's doing, and say, okay, let's get super focused with that. I think when people, screenwriters or aspiring screenwriters, are approaching their first project, they're trying to put so much into it. And I've seen it in other scripts or sometimes other films. They're trying to do too many things. But once you identify your theme, like, stick with that. Stick with that. What's the core principles of Motherland? Stick with that. And then you have all of their characters are dealing with different types of issues and different things related to that theme. So it offered us the opportunity to express how people are being affected by the world of Motherland in all of these different ways, to make it very real in society. It's like, and what I take particular joy in is at a Q&A screening, you get audience feedback. Everybody's taking away something different from the film. Everyone sees themselves reflected in the film in one form or another. And it'll be wildly different takes on different social issues, or what they're seeing, or which characters they're relating to. It's all over the map. But that's what's so awesome about movies. Because I could easily say, oh no, it's about this and it's only serving this crowd. I'm like, no, I don't want to be didactic or preachy or have an agenda. I feel like there's plenty of movies that do that already. I don't want to. I want people to have a theatrical experience. And I'm challenging the audience to think and do +2+2 and earn the 4 and get their wheels turning, because there's staying power with this film. After that, when people walk out, they're still talking about it for hours. I'll hear other people talking about the movie and they're not talking to me about it. So I'm like, that's cool. That's what you want. You want to go and keep discussing it. And People getting van rides or in different cars. They're talking about the movie together. Like, what did you think? What did you think? Holy crap! What was this scene? What was the scene that blew your socks off? So, it does a variety of things, and that's really, really cool to see. People bring their creativity to the film,
which I think speaks to the importance of seeing it with a crowd, right? Seeing it in this kind of setting. Could you talk a little bit more about the specificity of language, like in this world? Because I was so sort of taken by that. I mean, from the roles of people, the enforcer, the scorekeeper, the bearers, the donors, to the word of the day, right? It is imperative, right? And then how those are used over and over. I found the attention to language in this film really impressive, but also important to how it did all the subtle things for the story itself.
Yeah, I huge credit to Nicole Ravey who wrote the script. It was in the bones of the structure, and then you know how it is. You go and you make a movie, and then it gets real, and we didn't have time for rehearsal with the actors because of the writer's strike limitations and the interim agreement. We didn't get to do a table read, so I was doing rewrites on the script and changing the dialogue and finding different language things to say, how can we dial this up to 11? That's the beauty of having a great writer, then bringing on a director, and everyone is creatively invested in this project to make it the best version for itself. And I'm all about the best ideas winning. And sometimes these are things I would explore with the actors on the day of, or in their trailers while we're setting up different scenes and we're putting the scene up and working on it, workshopping it, and I'll be writing between scenes and writing every night after filming. How can we make this world unique with its language? Because you want it to be its own. You don't want to just use the same language we hear today. It's what did they develop? There's kind of an odd, proper structure to speaking in this world that I was talking about with the cast and making these decisions, and how does Zinnia speak, and how is she kind of putting on a face a little bit around Cora versus her friends, and what type of poise does she have, or the levels of respect the students have around the teacher type roles in this world. I was very conscious of that in the performances, and also trying to track that through everybody's arcs and everything. And I love the greenhouse sequence where you finally get the walls are dropping for Cora and Mateo, and how they can speak to each other. And there's a much needed moment of levity in the film, because it's a heavy movie. I mean,
I went into it thinking it was a comedy, and then I was very
it's a feel-good movie of the year at DIFF.
It's the upper of the year. There's a Sunshine Award at this festival, I think.
We do have the sun shining in one scene, I think.
So I want to address that, because I think, the language goes to speak to this kind of state of fascism, right? Where the language really serves the state. And this film, the tones of the film, the way it looks, again, really kind of reinforce that idea of oppression and fascism.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I'm glad you picked up on that, because the language is a form of walking on eggshells, right? If you've ever been in some sort of narcissistic, manipulative relationship, all of a sudden you start to self-audit your language and self-censor, so that everyone's very conscious of what they can say, what not to say. You don't want to get out of line. There are repercussions here, and there's the fear of the exile in this world. And sorry, my mind was going in that direction. But yeah, we wanted to use as many visual cues to make the world oppressive as well. I mean, even with Kasusha Genenfeld, the cinematographer, when we were designing the look of the film from a camera's perspective and the language, we knew we wanted to have painterly frames and beauty, but also constrict the frame, limit the types of movements you can make. There wasn't a lot of giant fluid movements in the movie. That maybe towards the end, when Cora starts to embrace what real freedom is, then we can get off the sticks and move the camera more. So we were developing that visual language all throughout and tracking when do we take these moments to have a different type of stylized camera move in here. Also, with production design, Elizabeth Jones and Carmagie with our wardrobe, all of those departments all working synergistically with each other, designing a look in the palette of the film, saying, okay, we want to have these muted, desaturated pastels because we're trying to have color in the world, but we can tell it's been so extracted and devoid of the emotion and feeling. And for us, or for me at least, and Kasusha, this is a little bit of an anti-Barbie movie with the use of pink in the film. Not that we have anything against Barbie, but we're like, hey, let's flip it on its head. Let's say we are projecting pink onto women, saying, be this is what you identify with, and blah, blah, blah. And we'll say, this is a false pink that is forced upon the women in this world, and they don't think twice about it, much like we probably don't think twice about it in society until Cora leaves the grounds, and that's the first time you're seeing real natural pink occurring in nature. So this is by design, where I wanted to write this sequence in the script where we leave the campus, where we go on a little bit of a journey, and we find this greenhouse, and it's something for the audience. I want them to feel that desire to be in nature and that natural order. These women don't even know they're being denied their motherhood because of the indoctrination in the society. So even Cora, for the very first time, sees a woman in paintings holding a child, and she's never seen that before. So we're breaking down new walls, and I love that it's happening in nature. And you have happy birds for the first time, and you have real greens and the pinks and the colors, and it's so visually pleasing that everyone in the audience should say, I want to be here more. Please don't take me back to Motherland, right? Once you escape Plato's cave, it's a terrifying thought to say, I have to go back into the cave to try to rescue as many people as possible at risk of my own life and theirs as well.
But that then brings up Zinnia when she whoa, wait, I don't want to spoil it.
Oh yeah, no spoilers.
I'm sorry.
Announce the spoiler section.
Well, and if you weren't here, I would spoil it. But I would say that there's a moment where someone does go back to the cave to try to get other people out, and they refuse, right? They rebuke that, and they say, no, this is reality. This is the only reality that I know, and I'm afraid of a different reality. And so I like that you were thinking of Plato's cave there as well. And this idea you brought up, like real freedom, and that's something else I think the movie does really well, is how Motherland purports to be giving people freedom, but it's not, right? It's not a real freedom. And I think that there's a parallel in the world we live in, right? They're like, this is freedom, but yet you still have to do what I say, right? You're free to follow my orders, right? So I think those things work really well together.
Well, it's very cult-like. Like, I think that's, people are usually fascinated by cults. I know I am. I'll watch any cult movie. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna get weird in there. What's it going to take for someone to get out, or what's going on behind the scenes to keep this thing up and running? And isn't that Motherland? It's like, yeah, it only works if everybody's in on it. And if there's any weak links in the chain, like, what do you do about that? How does Motherland handle it? I mean, you guys know, you've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So,
which is a great moment, by the way. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. Well, I get a kick out of the movie when there's these different gasps and emotional reactions, and that's why I love watching it with the audience. And usually people are like, you want to sit through your movie again? I'm like, I'm not so much watching it as I am watching people's reaction to it, because to me that's a thrill, knowing that all these emotional beats that we wrote in, and when I was very consciously crafting with the performances and the actors, they're landing for people. When we get that one laugh in the movie, like that, I'm like, good, I'm glad it landed. Like, that's a great exchange. Me and the actors workshop for 3 days leading up to that scene, because we knew we want to make sure we handle this right. And huge thanks to Nestor and Miriam for finding the time in between such a tight schedule. This was shot in 18 days with no rehearsals. So we would have, instead of like a 5 to 10 minute director's rehearsal before a blocking rehearsal, sometimes it'd be 30 or 40 minutes. Because we would have to we got to figure this out before we commit this to camera. If we don't figure out where this beat lands for the entire arc of their character, and something you're shooting completely out of order, like, it's not going to land. And that's up to me to track every single character and their arc, and then every actor's tracking it themselves, and we have to agree to that, and then figure out what's happening when, and how far do we want to go, where are we hitting in this emotional range for each thing we're putting up. It's a lot to do, like, on the fly as you're going, but you feel the pressure from the first AD and the producer, and everyone's looking at their watch, and they're looking at you, and they look at each other, and they look at you, and they look at their watch, and there's the bead of sweat, and I had to protect my actors because I don't want them to feel that pressure. That's up to me. I have to shoulder all of that, and I'll make the cuts and things we'll have to make in those tough decisions as we're moving through. But I don't want them to feel like they have to rush through a performance, or they might be doing it unintentionally because they know there's a ticking clock. I want them to feel safe. We're going to explore. We're going to do this right. And then I think the proof's in the film. We did the right thing there. We're trusting our instincts.
Given, and this is not a political film in nature, but given the political times that we're in, and of course we're always in political times, that's kind of a silly statement, but did you find yourself trying to balance, trying to not be preachy, or did you find that your message was, was solid as it was, or did you ever have to feel moments where you had to pull back, or if a message was being maybe too over the top, considering we throw around terms like fascism kind of a lot these days, right?
Yeah, there's fascism or just anything in that realm. But it's great because people are identifying something in there, and they're like, oh, I see this, and it's cool. All walks of life are finding something in it, and I wanted that to be the experience. And I made a short film a few years ago that was this unintentional proof of concept for Motherland. It was like similar main characters, similar themes, similar dystopian world. So I had stumbled into that by accident, where my goal was to just have something right down the middle, so I have created something everybody can access. And having that experience, I knew I wanted to bring that to Motherland, so it's available to everybody, because that's like the best movie. You want everyone to be able to come to it, no matter what they're thinking. It's like, can you come to this movie, learn something about humanity, want to be a better human, and then leave feeling hopeful and inspired. And I think the movie does that. So I was very conscious from when I was pitching all the way up until you're screening the movie. Like, I don't ever want to tip one way or the other, because I want people to figure it out. It's great because they just bring so much to it, and it's very rewarding. And it's tough because people will draw their own parallels to what's going on in the world today, and I'm like, that's cool. I could get in there, and I have to resist the temptation to jump in there. And I have to thank Quentin Tarantino, because I see him do that all the time. He's like, I'm not here to tell you what to think or what was going on or the character motivations in the script. Maybe that's a private thing I do with the actors, but I'll never make that public. So I had to swear an oath to myself to resist the temptation to like jump in there and lock arms. Yeah.
Have there been any surprising reactions in the screenings you've done so far? I think that's kind of taking you back by like, that either somebody picked up on that you didn't think that they would, or something that a new take that was surprising to you. And I know you've been in it, so maybe not.
Oh, there was a very emotional reaction at the world premiere in Omaha, where a woman was crying over the role of Mateo and how deeply she connected to him and his arc. And she was like, this is how I see men in society have been emasculated or put in their place, where they don't want to speak out. They just want to like keep their head down and work hard and just like get through life. And for him, every character has an arc. All the main characters have an arc, and Mateo, and she really picked up and resonated with this. I was so surprised that she identified so closely with that, and because you've seen the movie, you see how he actually steps into such a major role. When you think it's too late or it's beyond hope, it's like, no, it's not too late for anybody, anywhere in this world.
And almost a maternal role at that, at the end, right? So, I mean, going back to my idea of feminism is for everybody, that's where, I mean, Mateo, again, without giving too much away, but gets affected, right? I mean, by Cora and by Cora's journey at that point. So
it's emotional for me to watch. Like, I get choked up watching the movie over and over again. It's like, cool, I'm not dead inside yet. I'm still reacting to the film. But yeah, that was a beautiful surprise, and I clipped it out and I sent it to Nestor. I'm like, hey, check this out, and it's like, oh, that's awesome, brother.
Going back to that kind of Duchampian, like the viewer kind of finishes the work of art, right, or like creates the meaning of the work of art. I have been, for non-personal reasons, I've read a few books on feminine shame and shame brought about by motherhood from society. And so that's something I really took away from this film as well, was how that like society, it doesn't intend to, but it makes motherhood a kind of shameful act? And do you love your child enough, right? Do you care for your child enough, right? Are you making the right decisions for, why would you let your kid do that? I mean, there's all these things that we do, I think, to make women feel a sense of shame after childbirth, right? I mean, body shaming after that as well. And I think this film does that ever so subtly, right? When we see subtle shifts in some of the female characters, but then how women react after giving birth as well.
Oh yeah, and that's again where I'm so I just have a heart full of gratitude that I've experienced this with my wife, to journey through this multiple times now with our children, so I could bring that to the script, to the material. I'm a sensitive human being, so I see those things and I see that I've had those experiences, and I want to bring that authenticity to the screen, and to take Nicole's work and elevate it from a director's standpoint. And now Nicole, she's pregnant for her first, so I'm curious to speak with her. Yeah, I'm curious to speak with her. Like, what does the movie mean to you now that you're on the cusp of being a mother? This must take on a whole new lens for
Motherland
you.
2 is going to be very interesting.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's funny. Some of the screenings are like, so what's going to happen next because of the ending?
Right. Well, this is a film that begs to be watched over and over again. There's so many things that you can take away from it, and I think to your point of so many different takes, there are so many things that I think upon multiple viewings you will pick up on and capture, and especially as more intended viewings. I do think there are certain areas as I was watching, I'm like, I really want to dig into this technology aspect and how this is being held, how it's being used to hold these people down. But so it was really, really interesting. All these different areas where you could really just kind of really deep dive into this world. And it's crazy because you look at the movie and you see all these themes and everything that we're talking about, but bring up the technology. This is a dystopian created world, so everything is custom for this movie, and all the conversations we have about what is this going to look like, what is it not. I don't want to copy anything else I've seen. We were very careful to design a look and a type of world, and when I was working with EJ Elizabeth Jones, the production designer, we're just looking at all the different influences of different types of dystopian projects, and even up to shows like Fallout coming out. It's like, okay, I know deep down I like that retro futurism. Well, why is that? What's cool about that? And let's also make sure we're not copying that in any way. Or a show like Silo on I think it was on Apple TV. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff out there. So okay, but what's unique about Motherland? Well, if we take technology, and it's been the 100 years of Alma Cain, right? Well, that means we would have reached our peak of technology, and now we've been on a downturn for decades. So that means it's a return to analog. It's a return to these 4x3 screens and VHS decks and big tubes and wires and hosing and all of these things. So yeah, and then you have even though you have those check-in systems, that's a relic of the last parts of advanced technology that are being used to keep people in Motherland. Yeah, right. So it's interesting how we use Motherlands and the technology that's available to us to kind of build a unique world. It's okay, it's believable. These are the things you could go digging through trash heaps and cobble back together, and it kind of lends itself to the old world that we've been painting over year after year after year, trying to hide the past. Don't worry what happened about pre-revolution. It's only here and now. That's why the greenhouse is so critical.
I mean, it functions as almost like a palimpsest, right? It's just this thing peeking through after it's been erased over and over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this cast is, I think, fantastic, right? You've got younger actors. You have Holland Taylor, who's been acting for 60 plus years,
65 years,
right?
Yeah.
And you've got Tony winners and Emmy winners, and then hearing you talk about the kind of restrained schedule you were on. I mean, what was it like working with all those people? I know that's a really basic question, but I mean,
it's a thrill. You're flying by the seat of your pants when you're working under these conditions, and it's intimidating at times because you're working with just such quality actors, and you don't want to let them down as a director, but. Like we were saying earlier, why is Evan directing this movie? When I meet with the actors, I would bleed first. I would let my walls down first. I would tell these stories and just open my heart and create an open and honest place for them to drop their walls and start to share their shared experiences as well. And everyone would respond to something different in the material. For Miriam, she hit me with that question when I was interviewing her, and we were in a situation where I had to close all 3 actors in the same weekend, or we wouldn't have a movie to make. It's like, okay, Evan, you have to go in there and sell them. I'm like, you directing this movie, what this movie's about. And Miriam, it was a lot of like, who am I? Why am I making this movie? And then we started to connect because she's a mother, and that was really important to me as a director, that she has that experience, and that's a bonding thing for the two of us. For Holland Taylor, it's like, why would she do another role like this? She's played authoritative figures her whole life, right? So for that, it was really what was the meat of the role of Tony? What was it about Tony? So I took her on that journey of, you're the only person that knows her mother, so you have a psychological advantage with every single person you ever encounter in Motherland. But you can never let anybody know that. So I'm trying to give her something to play that's unique, unlike anything else she's had before. And I was taking her on that journey, and the cat and mouse you get to play as an actor in those scenes, like, this is something you're hiding from Cora, but you know you're onto her about something. So she was really fascinated with that. So that I got her there. And with Nestor, and where he was born in Cuba, when he had to escape communism, he had relatives go missing. He never saw them ever again with bags over their heads. Like, he was like, there's scary things in here that was very personal to him. So he had a great personal interest in telling the stories. Like, yeah, people need to hear more stories like this. So there was a different way in with everyone, what their why would end up being to get them to be passionate about making this movie. And then, so that's great. Being vulnerable is a big part of working with everybody. And then you would see it too. And especially with someone like Holland, who's got so much talent and she's been around forever. I'm like, what am I going to say to you? You've done it all. But wouldn't you know, you get behind the scenes with her in a private place in her room, and she just wants to please the director, and she's very humble, and she's like, I want to get this right for you. Let's get this right. Like, and I'm like, oh, you're an actor who, just like the rest, you just want to do really good work, and you want to get out of your own way, and let's figure out a way so we all make the same movie together. Because you can get in a situation, especially in a pressure cooker of like this set in 18 days, where you're doing these extended rehearsals and your window for filming each scene is shrinking, that they could start to isolate and just protect their own performances, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing. You don't want that to happen. And so, thankfully, we ran such an open place for trying things out that it was a benefit. I'm glad we did that. I know it was really difficult in the day. It was probably the hardest for my first AD because he was stressing out the most, but it was worth it in the end.
Yeah, I think you can see that sense of trust come through as well. So
yeah, and especially with the fresh faces like Emily Oroncio. She's never been in even a short film before. This is her first time on camera for anything. She came straight out of the USC theater school program, and she's 20 years old and comes to our set, and this is her first time doing anything at all. So that's a whole other thing. So all the other casted roles, when we're doing the callbacks, that's my chance to really test the actors and see how many, like, can they take an adjustment? Now, can they take 2 adjustments? Can they take 3 adjustments in one setting? So I'm really trying to see what the limitations are, because we might be in a situation on set where we only have 2 or 3 takes. So I might try to overload you. Can you take 3 adjustments and do all 3 and build a performance quickly, and so we can move on to like the next bit of coverage, or turn the world around and do that again. And that's a lot of what we had to do to find who's the right cast for this film. And by doing that, you find out really who the most talented, who's right for those roles, who can handle a lot. And they were great. I'm so thankful for this cast. They were all wonderful. It was great for them to play, because it's great when you get a scene up and you're really workshopping it in the callbacks. To really see what we can do here, and then they show you something amazing, because you see a lot of auditions. What's like that 99% take, but what's that 1% take? It takes seeing a lot of those self tapes to narrow that down, and then go for it and bring them in. Mm-hmm.
What's next? What's next for? Where does Motherland go from here? I know you're probably playing the festival circuit, right?
We are, yeah. We're playing the festival circuit. This is our 4th festival here in Dallas, so it's brand new on the circuit. The festivals are trickling in now. So like, okay, we're being strategic. We want to have a little footprint across the United States, see if we get everywhere. And then we have some distribution deal offers. There's one we really like. We're holding off on executing that just because we want to have that grassroots campaign on the festival circuit. So our goal is to, once the distribution's signed, it'll get into theaters at some point, probably late in the year. And then after that, it'll go out down to the streamers. So we're looking forward to that phase too. But I'm embracing the moment now, going on the road with the film, seeing what the reactions are, and building some great relationships along the way. And then I have to blow the dust off another script of mine that was setting up before I got Motherland. So, because I know what's going to happen, everything I learned from this, I say, well, this script doesn't make sense from a producing standpoint anymore. So there's that, but I'll get to that when there's time. But right now, I'm just enjoying the moment and the process and getting the movie out there and just experiencing it with audiences.
Yeah, as you should, right? It's a wonderful accomplishment, I think, this film.
Congratulations, and it's a very, very intriguing film, and I like I said, I'm looking forward to digging back into it when it is available to do so, for sure.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. The director's commentary, if we still do those, it'll be the 4-hour edition.
Good, like supplemental materials, right? Director's commentary on the extended cut.
Right? Oh, man. We used like every inch of footage on this movie.
Well, and that's interesting, and I mean, not to keep going, but there's no fat on the film. It's a pretty lean film.
It's a lean film.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're in and out in 95 minutes.
Yeah.
You feel like
you breathe a lot of life.
I mean, it's a tough, rewarding 95 minutes.
It's a hard.
I mean, tough in a good
movie.
way.
Yeah, like what you get in the end, like it's hard earned, and I'm glad if you stick through it, you get to have that cathartic moment.
There's again, like, not to drone on, but like there are so many like little moments that really stood out to me. But like especially the interactions between the young women, the fighting over the clothing, the instigation that happens amongst them, and the prodding of like, for those who are on the honor roll. There are so many moments like that I think, like I said, that's what really will pull people back, at least from my perspective, will pull people back into this movie and really want to kind of dig into those subtle moments that, yes, this is a story about motherhood, this is a story about hope, this is a story about fighting back against your oppressors, but there's also a lot that builds up to that, or builds to those moments too. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. It was fun. It was fun to get that in and get those layers, because it's a pretty quiet, observant film, so we don't hit you heavy with these things, but you could pick that up. You could feel it's palpable in the performances and in the scenes. So yeah,
that was the last false ending. Evan, thank you again for sitting down with us. We really enjoyed talking to you.
Fun. Yeah, Rock Jason, appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations and all the best going forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you're in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time,